What's up everybody, it's Dr. Michael Mash, and today we're going to talk about how to fix shooting hips on the deadlift. Before we get started, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. That helps get our message to more people who need help just like you. As mentioned, today we're talking about how to fix shooting hips on the deadlift. But before we talk about how to fix it, let's talk about the optimal starting position for a deadlift. Because if you aren't starting in an optimal position, then the fixes are not going to do anything. In the optimal starting position of the deadlift, the barbell should be over the middle of your foot, and this equates to about 1 to 2 inches away from your shins. So you don't want to start with the barbell against your shins, because what will happen is this. When you go to get into the starting position, it's going to roll away from you and it's going to cause you to move your center of gravity forward. And that's not something you want when you're pulling a barbell upwards. On the flip side, you don't want to start with it too far forward, like over the forefoot or 3 to 4 inches away from your shins, because this is going to allow you to get artificially lower than you should. And if you start with your hips too low, they're going to inevitably shoot up to the correct position. So this isn't an issue with shooting hips, this is an issue with an improper start position. So if you are starting with the barbell in the correct position, 1 to 2 inches away from your shins, over the middle of the foot, and your hips are still shooting up, the number one reason why is the weight just may be too much. If the weight is too much, the hamstrings are going to inevitably win the war over the low back, and your hips are going to shoot up. This happens because if the weight is too heavy, your hamstrings are going to want to lengthen more before the barbell comes off of the ground. Lengthening more puts more tension on the hamstrings, and your low back is going to go into more flexion than it needs to initiate the lift. So step one, it just may be a load issue. See if backing down the load just a bit, maybe 5 or 10%, see if that helps prevent your hips from shooting up. Another important cue for deadlifting is making sure you're dragging the bar up your shins. At no point should the barbell lose contact with your shins or your thighs. If the barbell is losing contact with your shins or thighs, that means the hips are shooting upwards. So to fix this, make sure that you're dragging the bar up your legs. Think about dragging it up your legs, maintaining contact with the shins and thighs. As mentioned before, you may not even have a shooting hip issue, you may have a setup issue. Because here's what happens a lot of times. People see that their hips are shooting up in the deadlift and they think, oh man, I need to sit lower so I can produce more leg drive. But what this does is it just puts the hamstrings on more slack, and anytime that you're lifting a heavyish weight on the deadlift, even if you start with the hips low, the hips will rise to the optimal starting position as those hamstrings take up slack before the bar leaves the ground. So you'll see this all the time. Many people will say, well, why don't you want to sit low? These insert professional powerlifter name starts with the hips low, but if you watch those videos in slow motion, what you'll see is this. The hips will rise to the optimal position before the barbell leaves the ground. So you may not have a shooting hips issue, you may just be starting too low. So how do we fix this? Again, make sure you're dragging the bar the whole way up your legs and you're not losing contact between the bar and your legs. Number two, make sure to push through your legs. The deadlift is simply just not grip and rip, pull it off the ground. Make sure you're pushing through your quads, push through the legs. And finally, just make sure the weight's not too much. See if dropping the load 5 to 10% helps correct your shooting hips, and if so, the load was just simply too heavy. So hopefully with these tips, you can help correct your shooting hips during the deadlift. As a reminder, if you liked it, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends so we can help as many people as possible. Thanks for watching.